Today I'm going on a little bit of a rescue mission. I'm gonna go see if I can make grass turn green. I've showed some of the transport of the grass out to the island, and I showed what it looked like when it was relatively unmaintained. Today I'm gonna go try to put a little bit of water on that grass and put a little bit of fertilizer on it too. I want to see what happens if this grass that's planted on a very sandy soil, it's not really maintained very much. I want to see if it gets just a little bit of maintenance, what that would look like. I'm standing on this dry grass. I've shown how it was moved out to the island as sod and it was planted here, and it's still alive. It was planted about 6 months ago, and now it's the dry season in this part of Thailand, and it's on sandy soil, and it's not really irrigated, it's not really maintained very much, and this grass is actually on a path going between the swimming pool and some of the cottages at the resort and the main building where the restaurant is. So the grass gets a lot of traffic, it doesn't get a lot of irrigation, and it doesn't really get fertilizer. And I want to try, because I'm friends with the resort owners and the management here, I want to try to see what happens if I put a little bit of fertilizer and a little bit of irrigation here to see if I could make this grass look a little bit better. It's just kind of a fun project for me. And when we think about what makes grass green and growing, there's really 4 factors to consider. Grass needs enough light, and I can guarantee there's plenty of light right now in the dry season. There's plenty of sun. We're 7 degrees north of the equator, so there's quite a bit of photosynthetically active radiation. Light is not the limiting factor here. The other thing that grass needs, one of the other 4 things that it needs, is it needs the right temperature. And it's about 32 degrees Celsius or something in the high 80s today. For this warm season grass, this is manilagrass, Zoysia matrella. I'm pretty sure that the temperature is not the limiting factor for the grass to grow. But the other 2 things that grass would need is water and fertilizer. Specifically, it'll really need nitrogen in order to photosynthesize well and grow. So I suspect, I'm pretty sure, that the limiting factors here may be water, lack of water, or it may be lack of nutrients. So what I'm going to do, it's not going to be a replicated experiment, but I've got a tape measure here and a marker, and I'm going to measure out some 1 square meter plots. So I will come back later, hard work I know, but somebody has to do it. I will come back later sometime in the future and check these plots and see what the effect is of the water and the fertilizer that I put today. So the first thing I'm going to do, right here in this trafficked area, I'm going to mark out some 1 square meter plots. Mark those out real quick. So I've marked out 3 spots, 3 adjacent areas that are each 1 square meter in area. And when I was at home this morning, I weighed out some fertilizer. I weighed out some urea nitrogen, which is the urea nitrogen, which is at a rate of 3 grams of actual nitrogen per square meter. And then I also weighed out some urea with some monopotassium phosphate, and the monopotassium phosphate contains phosphorus and potassium, and so that will be a check of whether only nitrogen added is good for the grass, or whether this grass will also respond to phosphorus and potassium. So let me start mixing that up. I'm going to start by applying some water to all these areas so that the soil is has a little bit of soil moisture in it before I apply the fertilizer, because if you look at this, it is quite dry and sandy. So these spots, I think it will be fine if I add a few liters of water here before before putting the fertilizer. That was 6 liters of water spread over 3 square meters. So that would be a irrigation rate or a precipitation rate of 2 millimeters of water. And I think I would like to add a little bit more. So I'm going to add an additional 6 liters of water so that we've had a pre-treatment irrigation that is equivalent to 4 millimeters of precipitation over this area. And then I'll go ahead and apply an extra irrigation treatment, and then I'll apply the fertilizer treatments. That was 3 more liters over 3 square meters, so that is 1 millimeter of precipitation that they just received. I'm going to put another 3 liters, another 1 millimeter, and then I'll be ready for the treatments. Well, we've added a little bit of moisture there, so the grass has received 4 millimeters of pre-treatment irrigation. And now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make a note in my notebook so that I don't forget this, I'm going to let this first plot, this first square meter that's closest to the restaurant, I'm just going to let this be a irrigation treatment. So I'm going to add an additional 3 millimeters of precipitation, 3 millimeters of irrigation from this. So that will just be the water treatment. And then this middle one that I'm standing on now, I will let be the nitrogen only treatment. This will receive the same amount of water, the 3 millimeters of water, together with 3 grams of nitrogen. And then this one right here, the one on the end, will receive the 3 millimeters of water together with urea, together with 1 gram of phosphorus from the monopotassium phosphate, and about 1.2 grams of potassium from that. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll go ahead and do the water first, and then I'll mix up the fertilizers and apply them. 3 liters of water applied to 1 square meter, which has a depth of 3 millimeters. The metric system is very convenient in this way. Now this would be about 1/8 of an inch of water. 3 millimeters would be about 1/8 of an inch of water. Remember, this has already received 4 millimeters to start with. So that's the plot number 1. Plot number 1 has gotten a good soaking of water. So when I come back and check this again, I want to see if water only improved the growth of the grass and made it able to tolerate the traffic on this very busy path, or whether water plus fertilizer would have an even better effect. I mixed up this urea, I weighed it very carefully, and so this is enough urea. When I dissolve this in the water, it's going to supply the urea together with the water at a rate of exactly 3 grams of nitrogen per square meter. So I'm going to put it in here. And then I'm going to add the water. Now that urea dissolved really pretty easily. I think it was already completely dissolved, but I'm stirring it with this coconut scoop with the handle of this coconut scoop, just to make sure that all of the urea is completely dissolved. So it looks like, if we look in there, I just don't see that there's any granules. So that means that the nitrogen is all in solution, and I'm going to apply it together with 3 liters of water, which is going to be about 1/8 of an inch of precipitation, 3 millimeters of water going down with the urea to soak in to the upper part of the root zone here. This is in the middle plot, the second plot. So now the water is expected to have a growth stimulating effect on the grass, but so is the nitrogen. The nitrogen may green this up. I'm going to have to come back and check that. So I'll just go to the plot boundaries that I've measured out earlier and try to spread that as evenly as I can across that area. All right, so we've got 2 treatments down. This one just got water. This one in the middle got the same amount of water plus urea at a rate of 3 grams of nitrogen per square meter. And this final one I'm going to mix up with the urea, the water, and a small dose of monopotassium phosphate. So this one I mixed up at home. This is urea at the same rate, and I added monopotassium phosphate, which is at 1 gram of actual P, not P2O5, and 1.2 grams of potassium, not potassium oxide, at a rate per square meter. So this is about a 3:1:1 ratio of N, P, and K, and this is like a complete fertilizer. So we'll see if that complete fertilizer, maybe adding that extra phosphorus and potassium, will help the grass respond even better. The urea only, this really looks like it dissolved already, but I'm stirring it again just to be sure that we get every little bit of that fertilizer dissolved. So now that's in solution and I can apply it. So we've got our water plot, our urea nitrogen only plot, and this final plot is getting the same rate of water, and it's also getting the same rate of urea, and in addition to that, it's got a little bit of phosphorus and potassium in it. I'm really looking forward to coming back and seeing what these plots look like if they respond to this treatment. Now over here, there was no water added, no fertilizer added, so we'll see how this differs from that plot that didn't receive anything to this one that got a full treatment of fertilizer and water. All right. So that was fun. It's fun to do that kind of little test, and it's not replicated, but it is going to be informative. I'm going to come back and check next week, and I don't think, because it's Zoysia grass and because it was so dry to begin with, I don't think I'll see anything when I come back next week, but I'll be sure to check it and report to you about how it's doing. And maybe I'll come back later, or I'll ask my friends to check it and take a photo of that and let us know if the water alone had an effect, or if the fertilizer had an effect, or maybe nothing had an effect. So it will be very interesting. But I have to remember in my notebook to write down what date I did this, and which plot got the water only, which plot got the urea, and which plot got the urea plus monopotassium phosphate. All right, thanks so much for watching.